I've known Tom for about 50 years. I came to the University of Oshkosh in 1967 and soon met Tom, so that's almost 50 years. This is my wife, Karen. I even brought her along when I came here. Well, because of the 3 kids, I thought I better. Anyhow, we've had quite a time, quite a 50 years with Tom and Sue, and we did a lot of traveling. It was a lot of fun. For example, visiting them in Cambridge, England, when he was at a sabbatical at the Cambridge University. And another example, we went sailing in the Florida Keys. We started a sailboat down there, Marathon Key. And Karen, what do you think about the pack-up moment?
I remember when we began the trip, Tom said he would drive to the Milwaukee airport. We told him to pack lightly, as sailboats don't have a lot of space. We drove from our house to their house and were amazed when we saw the very, very, very large duffel bag plus a shotgun in a cloth case. When asked why the gun, he replied, "For the pirates, of course."
So we took the shotgun along, and we had a wonderful sail. The first night, I forget, it must have been the weather, but we were at the dock, and we stayed overnight instead of taking off to go on our sailing trip. And when we got up in the morning, we were awful low on booze that we bought in town that day. So we had to go back into town and restock our liquor supply after just one night. We had a wonderful sail, ran aground a couple of times, and at one point a guy came out from a huge, really expensive powerboat, I would say about 70 foot long, and a Zodiac with a great big outboard motor on it. He said, "Do you have a beer?" We said, "Well, I guess we have a beer." He says, "I'll tow you off of there." So we gave him a beer, which obviously he didn't need. Anyhow, I thought that was kind of interesting that a stranger would ask for a beer to tow us off. We only ran aground a few more times after that. We sailed down and then on the Gulf side of the Keys, and we ran into some bad weather, and Sue was kind of sick of this business. She threatened to take a bus and go back home to the car. But she did. And we had a great sail back with like 25 or 30 knot winds, and maybe Sue didn't like that either, I don't know. And we've gone to places like Jamaica, where we get there in Jamaica and there are drug dealers in the city, in the streets, you know, you could buy pot. I don't know what else they had for sale. Not that I bought any pot. We went scuba diving, and I came home with bad ears and had to get my ears pierced to fix them up. We bought a wooden parrot 9 feet tall, and we brought it home on the aisle of the airplane. You couldn't do that these days.
Passengers had to walk like this because of the parrot in the middle of the floor.
Did you see it?
You've heard of all these field trips that Tom took. I think he would go into the Tagish Lake in the Yukon, Alaskan border area for, I don't know, 35 years or something like that. He first went there with his dad. And after quite a few years in the department, the other faculty members of the department that weren't familiar with the field trip justifiably had an interest in finding out what goes on. You've heard some things about what goes on. But they wanted to look at the geology because it was a geology course the students got credit for. So we got some money from the Letters and Science School to fly our university airplane up there and take about 5 faculty members. Fenner, yeah, Bill Fenner, yeah, he wouldn't fly with us. he had probably good reason to, but he flew commercially up there and met us there. So we had this nice trip where he was showing the faculty what went on in the field trip. Except apparently he didn't show them everything. And Karen, you've got something to say about the departure.
I remember this trip because Jim Hoffman was going to be co-pilot, the dean, and he got together with John and said, "We've got to leave a day early, John. We've got to look at the weather, look at the weather." And John agreed we've got to leave a day early. And so it happened. It was late morning when they left that I received a phone call at home from the risk management office at UW Oshkosh. Did I know where John was? No. Do you know when he'll be back? No. Again, well, Madison wants to cancel that trip to the Yukon. And I didn't tell him anything. I just played cat and mouse with him. And he said that trip is too risky, too far, and we have too many profs in one plane. And so it was a narrow escape.
Good job, Karen.
And Karen, did they say they've heard too many stories about field camp? No? Okay. Well, they were great friends. We went to see them in Cambridge. They came to see us in Malaysia and traveled around Malaysia, going to beach resorts and so on. And went to Singapore at Raffles Restaurant, very fancy, highbrow restaurant where we had quail eggs for breakfast. And Karen's got something to say about Tom.
Tom and Sue had spent 2 weeks with us in Malaysia, and we had a fabulous time, as only the four of us can. It was lots of laughing, lots of swimming, lots of carrying on, lots of drinking, lots and lots and lots. Tom and Sue had to depart Singapore because that's the arrangements that they made, and so we drove them there to spend the night. They decided we wanted to experience, all of us should experience the world famous Raffles. And so we had breakfast there. How very elegant it was. Waiters quickly placing napkins across our laps, refilling coffee and water glasses constantly. There was a long buffet line with many chafing dishes, with the lids all standing on side of each dish. Tom got up for seconds, while John and Sue and I engaged in conversation at the table. A loud clattering resounded throughout the entire room. Without even looking up, Sue said, "That must be Tom." He had somehow managed to set all the lids to fall down in a clanking domino effect.
Well, this wasn't all just screwing around. We went to Mexico on a project where we're doing geophysics and magnetic surveys and gravity surveys. And we were, I don't know where we started from, but we had to travel by land, not by airplane, to do the gravity work. And Karen's got something to say about traveling with Tom and
This is probably the last thing I have to say because I think we're taking a lot of time and there are probably others who want to speak. But we had so much fun with Tom and Sue. It was just always an adventure. It was just always, you think of the most impossible thing that can happen, and it did. Anyway, John and Tom received a grant to do some magnetic and gravity studies in the Kubila Desert. We girls accompanied them. Our destination for the study was far from town. So in a borrowed Jeep, we set out with Tom telling us he knew the way. After driving for quite a while, maybe several hours, it occurred to me I had seen the same lonely tree about 3 times. When asking TF if we were lost, he replied, "Only medium."
well, you know he's quite a hunter, and finally convinced me to go deer hunting with him, and he was going to teach me how to deer hunt. So I did go twice, and by golly, if we didn't get a deer both times. Now, for those of you who've gone deer hunting, I imagine here there's quite a few. You always don't get a deer when you go deer hunting. But 2 times in a row we got a deer. The first one we found dead in the woods. The second year we hit a car on the way home. I've learned a lot from Tom Mullen. On this last exploratory journey, may he discover peace, commitment, and heavenly bliss. God bless Tom Mullen.